Welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Dots Loves Marketing. Join your host, Dots Oyebolu, as he learns from CMOs, agency leaders, and business leaders about the state of performance marketing, plus insights on strategies, campaigns, and intelligence for commercial impact. Connect the dots and enjoy the latest episode.
Hi, marketers. This is Dots, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. With me here is Isaac Rudansky, CEO at Adventure Media Group. This is part 2 of the topic that we've been discussing about the structures of commercially profitable omnichannel ad strategies. I know you guys are ready. Let's do it. Welcome back, Isaac. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dots. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll get right into it. Again, we are looking at the topic of having an omnichannel ad strategy that works. Basically, forget all the other terminologies that we try to put into things as marketers. There is one part of that which I know you have a lot of expertise in: conversion rate optimization, being able to increase the relevance of your ad either from the traffic side or from the I call it the online presence side. What are some of the common mistakes that you see when people are using or leveraging CRO, in omnichannel advertising? And what are some of your, I guess, best practices?
Sure. I think it's important for people to realize how important CRO is, because you're investing in acquisition. Every visitor to your site costs money, even direct traffic, right? Because you've invested in your website. Maybe you're investing in SEO, you're writing articles, you're writing content, especially if you're doing paid advertising, which is the world I come from. And the total cost of your advertising, ultimately an expense against your revenue. So as you acquire more, your sort of fixed costs per sale go up. For example, if my conversion rate on an e-commerce store is 1%, then 1 in every 100 people coming to the site are buying. If the traffic costs $1 a click, right, then I've spent $100 worth of traffic to acquire a customer. And if I want to acquire a second customer, I could do one of two things, essentially. I could buy another 100 clicks, right? So I could spend another $100 getting another 100 clicks, and then I'm going to get a second customer. Or I could take my conversion rate from 1% to 2% and then get a second customer from the initial 100 people I've
On the
purchased.
same cost. Yep.
Same cost. And now the return, the profit on my sale has gone up dramatically, because instead of $100 cost per acquisition from paid, I have a $50 cost per acquisition from paid. So the higher you could increase your conversion rate, you have a very significant direct impact on your profitability. So that's the first thing. It's an important thing to focus on.
Mhm.
The second piece, I would say, to realize is conversion rate is a percentage of your visitors that convert. So there's two things there to keep in mind. One is that it's a percentage. So conversion rate, people sometimes confuse, we had a conversion rate of 100 sales. That's not a conversion rate. That's just a volume of conversions. Conversion rate's a percentage.
Yeah.
You also have to define what a conversion is. A conversion doesn't have to be the last step of a funnel, like a purchase or a form submission if you're a lead gen business. Conversions could be views of key pages. A conversion could be an event you set up in analytics that it's any visitor that spends a certain amount of time on the site, or a visitor that scrolls a certain depth of a page, or a visitor that downloads a white paper, or a visitor that makes a phone call.
Or download a podcast episode.
Downloads a podcast episode, or begins to listen to a podcast episode. Exactly. And then you have to understand that different rates are good, average, reasonable rates for an individual conversion. So let's say take an e-commerce store, for example. You have an e-commerce store selling, I don't know if we used this example last time, stationery, pens, and, ink, replacement.
Yeah. I think it was your notebook.
Our notebooks, right? Stationery store online. No, all right. What's going to be what's the right conversion rate? Now, there's no right or wrong answer, but if 0.25% or 0.5% or 1 in every 200 or 300 people are buying something, that's probably too low. And if you think you're ever going to get a 30% conversion rate, you're dreaming. Or you're getting a 30% conversion rate, you're not bidding aggressively enough. You're not bringing enough traffic to the site. Maybe you're just bringing people who are searching for your brand terms. And even then, right? In most cases, a 3, 4, 5% conversion rate for an e-commerce store is pretty healthy. It's quite, for larger stores with higher amounts of traffic and maybe more expensive price points, and 1% or a 0.5% conversion rate could be very, very good and very profitable.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's sort of the definition and the understanding of conversion rate, and it's very important. A mistake I see people, you asked me about, common mistakes. Mentioned 2 common mistakes. One common mistake is that people don't recognize that while you have to hit a certain production value, production quality, at a certain point, it becomes a question of appropriateness. And I'll explain what I mean.
Yeah.
You could take 2 different department stores. On the very high end, you have department stores like Bergdorf Goodman or the Chanel store on Fifth Avenue or Tiffany. On the lower end, you might have a Macy's. They're designed very differently. Or you take a Costco. They're designed very differently. When you walk into Costco or you walk into Chanel, you feel very different.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that Costco or Macy's production value is low and should be raised. If Costco is designed like the Chanel store, their AOV would decline.
Yeah.
If Chanel was designed like the Costco store, their AOV would decline.
Yeah.
So there's so there's 2 things here. One is
just to clarify for anyone there, AOV, what does that mean?
Average order value. Yeah.
Yeah. There you
Your
go.
average order value, the revenue from the store, or your conversion rate. So there's a few things here. Visitors do make a very quick, in less than a second or less than half a second, instinctual decision whether or not they're going to buy from you, and whether or not they think that, whether or not they think your products in your store are legitimate. And that happens within the first half a second of a person coming to your site. So you have to have your pages have to load quickly. Your formatting has to be correct. It has to look professionally designed. You have to meet that threshold. But then designers and stakeholders get very caught up in details that don't matter beyond a certain threshold.
Yeah.
And in fact, sometimes an overly polished and minimalist production quality is going to hurt your brand, depending on the type of brand you are, depending on the type of look and feel your customers are expecting. So production value is extremely important. Production value is extremely important, but beyond professionalism and usability and readability and navigability, the design should be appropriate for your audience. Okay, that's the first thing I want to mention. The second very common mistake I see people making is around their copywriting and their messaging. There was a quote I once saw from a famous advertiser. He said that great designers seldom make great advertisers. He said because they tend to get caught up in the beauty, and they forget that there is merchandise that has to actually be sold. So copywriting has to work to sell the product or to sell the services. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that design is not important. Design is very, very important. Like we just mentioned, production value is important, but without good messaging, without good copywriting, and generate interest, sales, and revenue. And good copywriting has to be clear first and foremost. A very common mistake people make is they try to either write too cute or funny, or they try to write too brief. There's a misconception that you have to really be brief and write very little on a website. And we're seeing now, with Squarespace and Wix and all these templates, you have like a few words headline, full screen images, very little information. And I think in certain cases that's good. In many cases, that's actually bad, because your goal is not to attract the most minutes amount of attention as possible. The goal is to attract the most amount of minutes of the people who might buy from you. So for example, say you have 100 visitors. 50 of those visitors are just not buying anything for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And nothing you do or say is going to convince them to. 30 of those visitors are or let's say 20 of those visitors are on the fence. Okay. But they're leaning towards no. 10 of those visitors are on the fence leaning towards yes, they could be convinced. And then the other 10 are already going to be your customers, even if you turn them away, or if you don't do such a great job. So your whole job is to really cater to the 10 people out of those 100 that are on the fence leaning towards yes. And think about last time somebody leased a car, or if they were doing construction on a home, or if they were reading up on their favorite sports team. They're reading quite a bit of information. They're spending a lot of time. And especially with business services or higher ticket e-commerce products, customers who care about these purchases, they want information. And I think too many brands, because they think they have to write with such brevity, they have to be so concise and so short, and they have to cut every possible word. They end up not giving the customer enough information. They don't talk enough about their products and services. And they do a disservice to their customers, and they do a disservice to their conversion rate. That doesn't mean you should waste words. That doesn't mean you should be overly repetitive. That doesn't mean you should write with flowery prose and fluff and bore people to death. But you should have enough content that caters to the seriousness with which a customer is approaching your product or your service. And if you're ever unsure, this is one of, I think it's a great test to run. If you're ever unsure, if you're being clear enough, do what we call a 5-second test. It's called the 5-second ability test. You take a screenshot of the hero section of your website, or the top of a landing page, or the top of a category page on your e-commerce store.
Yeah, above the fold.
Yeah, you show it to somebody for 5 seconds, and you take the picture away, take the image away, and you ask them, what does this brand do, or what do they sell? What value are they providing? And what makes them different, unique, why you should buy from them today. And within 5 seconds of a customer, or within 5 seconds of somebody looking at your headline and subheadline, they should have a pretty good sense of that information.
Yeah.
So that's called the 5-second usability test. And you got to be clear, right? You got to focus on clarity. Oftentimes, this is like a really classic and easy trick. If you go to most websites, you could just swap the headline and the subheadline, and you're going to get a better conversion rate. Because usually a headline will say something to like, welcome to the best day of your life. And it's like, well, what the hell are you selling? And this could be for anybody. Or they'll say something like rated number 1. Or they'll say just welcome. The word will just
superlative staccato copy.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
So
copy is like 2 or 3 words.
Yeah. And then the subheadline will say something like, replace your fountain, get your white sneakers cleaned for the low monthly fee of $9, and get your shoes back within 6 days, or money back guarantee, which is great, but that should have been in the headline. Or something along those lines, right? So be clear as much as you can. And like you said, Dots, avoid superlatives, unless they're real and substantiated, valuable.
Yeah.
And use facts. I always say with copywriting, if you could take this headline, you could take this copy and put it on any of our competitors' websites, then it's probably lazy copy. If the copy was written without any research into the product, it's probably lazy copy. If the product doesn't include any objective facts, objective numbers, objective metrics, then it's probably lazy copy. And if you solve for those 3 things, you're probably going to be writing very good copy. Writing good copy is pretty accessible to most people. writing the best ad campaigns in the world, that's okay. That's a creative art, and it takes a real creative genius to be able to come up with concepts and lines and big ideas that get into the mind of the everyday consumer and they stick, like Nike's Just Do It,
Yeah.
for example. Okay, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about basic website copywriting, optimized for conversion. And I think that's something that is accessible to most people and definitely achievable with some work and abiding by some rules.
Makes a lot of sense. And thanks for really breaking it down there. Something to add there is, what might also help is, come up with the most various versions of your positioning statement, brand positioning statement as much as possible. The standard formula. We exist for these markets to deliver this solution. Basically, what it says there, and you could have a longer version, you could have a shorter version. But I know about that. Now I know it's called the 5-second test. But you're above the fold. People should know exactly what you do. You should know exactly what you offer to them. It's not a silver bullet, and I think Isaac had mentioned a lot of things, a lot of areas through which you can look at this. So, just look at what works for you. Don't over test, but I would say some level of testing is definitely welcome. So you're testing messaging, you're testing design as well, but just don't overthink it. I think yes, it's good that you need to appreciate the seriousness of a customer's intent to your brand, but yeah, still don't overthink it, because simplicity in marketing is still real. If I were to really add to that as well. So guys, you might ask yourself, is this a course? Maybe. But is this going to be useful for you? Absolutely. So
Yeah.
please share this episode. Go back to part 1, listen to part 1, and listen to part 2 as well. So you see how we're able to sort of flow with everything. And please share. It helps us a lot if you share with your colleagues. I have one more, very interesting angle as well for Isaac, but we will take a very quick commercial break from our sponsor, and it's going to be the Dots Rapid Fire. So getting away briefly from all the seriousness and having a little fun with a fire that will not consume Isaac for sure. But it's still going to be hot. So we'll see how it goes. Guys, don't go anywhere. I'm saving the best question for the last. Stay tuned. Guys, welcome back. So like I said, it's a Dots Rapid Fire. Isaac is a witness in a virtual marketing court of law. So he's going to say the truth and nothing but the truth. Are you ready, sir?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. First question, what is your favorite marketing metric apart from sales or revenue?
Apart from sales or revenue.
Yeah.
I like search impression share. And that's a look at what percentage or how penetrated your brand is in Google search, sort of Google search specifically. And it tends to be a good proxy for how nonlinear campaigns are performing, whether it's TV or radio or just in general, how your brand is doing. Google commands a major percentage of, at least in the US, of share for search, and share of search against your competitors for certain key terms, I think is a really interesting metric. And then of course, return on ad spend. I mean, I come from a performance world. That's where my job is very much centered around. And return on ad spend is a big metric we look at every day.
Interesting. You're right. I think in the world of AI and search generative experience, that KPI may be more important than people think. These days. And return on ad spend. It's at the beginning of this episode, you're talking about the percentages versus the counts. Some people would say, I say the averages versus the counts. And that is one average that people should, really, really look at and hopefully measure properly. So um, that's good. Okay. Second question, how long do you use social media every day for work?
For work,
Yeah.
really very little. 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah. Maybe I should be on LinkedIn a little bit more, but
You should. You're a good, sir. You should go.
yeah, I don't use social media for work that much.
You should. We need to hear more. But I know you're very popular on YouTube,
Yeah, I
sharing
used to be more I used
Yeah.
to be more engaged on YouTube and LinkedIn. But it's a good, I got to get back into it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Last question. What is your favorite marketing quote?
I have a lot of favorite marketing quotes, but this one from David Ogilvy is one that I like. He says, hard work never killed a man. Men die of boredom, psychological conflict, and disease. They do not die of hard work.
My dad has this similar quote, and that's his favorite quote.
Yeah.
And I am like, Dad, it's been a very stressful year, blah blah blah, talking about work, and it's like hard work doesn't kill poverty.
Yep.
There's a way you say that in my language where it sounds like a rhyme, because hard work and poverty are the same letters. So in my language, the Yoruba language of Nigeria. So great one there. Never since heard that quotes. We've had some great quotes. Don't get me wrong. Some very popular quotes as well. People saying similar quotes, but yeah, that gave me some daddy Father's Day remembrance, even though it's not Father's Day yet. So okay. So the last question. Again, I know you have a lot of experience, and I've spoken to your colleagues as well. You have a lot of investments in being able to target customers based on their buying journey. So you're looking at the unique psychological characteristics of customers. And of course, that allows you to develop ad content in this case that is relevant, that also drives action, right?
Yeah.
What's your checklist? I come to you as a brand, and I say I need to go to market, and I need you to first help me understand, the characteristics, psychological, of my customers, how they behave, and how we can play into that. How do you take people through that journey?
If you're saying to launch a new brand specifically,
Yeah, let's just say to launch a new brand, because it's probably the hardest at that stage. So when you're going to market,
I think first from a more, let's say, psychological, motivational perspective, like most people fail launching because they quit too early, and there's no shortage of reasons why you're going to fail. Like, you're most likely going to fail statistically, but the people who succeed are able to live in a little bit of a realm beyond statistics, beyond likelihoods. They have a certain motivation, a certain optimism, a belief in themselves that interesting things are going to happen if I stay the course, if I stick it through, if I show up every single day. And I think that's something you hear over and over again from people who have been successful in whatever they're trying to achieve, is that it's not easy. You're no shortage of reasons why this is a bad idea. But it requires a lot of determination and a lot of optimism and a lot of consistency. So that's the first thing. Now, from a marketing perspective, I try to look at, say, okay, value, price, market, the basics. Do people want this? And you have to be honest. Like, is this something that you think people want? And that question is a little bit different depending on whether this is an established product and you're just doing something a little bit differently, and you're doing it or a little bit more luxuriously, or maybe you're doing it a little bit more affordably. You could take I don't need to answer whether or not people want pillows. I know people want pillows, but so then it's like, well, should I sell my pillow? Well, why? Is it any better? Is it cheaper? Is it different? And the real answer is, it doesn't have to be any of those things. The way the way internet commerce works is that that access to customers has been democratized. It's available. Traffic is available to anybody willing to pay for it. You don't have to sell your pillow through Bed Bath and Beyond, or
Yeah.
through a department store, or through a
And
distributor.
so on. Yeah.
You could sell your products and they could be exactly the same as 1,000 of the products in the marketplace, and it could still be a great business. You're not going to win any awards for creativity, but it could be a great business.
Yeah.
But you still need to think through value, price, and the audience. So if it's a new product, that's a whole different set of considerations.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a new product, but it establishes its own set of risks and its own marketing, let's say, principles. If I'm selling something new, what I need to do is describe what this thing can do for you, why it's valuable, what the
Yeah.
benefits are. If I'm selling a pillow, like there's a, it's a common refrain we hear in advertising. Don't talk about the features, talk about the benefits. Like
Yeah.
if you sell a vacuum, talk about why it's so great to have a clean room, because nobody wants a vacuum, they want a clean room. But I
Yeah.
think that's a mistake if you're selling vacuums today, because everyone knows what a vacuum is. Everyone knows that a vacuum gets me a clean room. That might have been good advice when vacuum cleaners or electric vacuum cleaners were first coming on the market, probably in the 1930s or whatever there was that. But,
Like, well, yeah.
but if I'm selling a vacuum today, I better be able to talk about the features and the specifics and the horsepower and the room coverage and how long the extendable cord is and how light it is and if it comes with what additional add-ons, because that's, if anything, is what's going to ultimately differentiate my product from the thousands of other vacuum cleaners out there. But if you're launching a new product, it's a different type of thing. You need to educate. If you're advertising a new product that has a similar use case to other products, but this is just its own unique twist, then you advertise and you talk about what's new about it and why is that new thing better.
Yeah.
Maybe that thing makes it last longer. Maybe you're a service business that's doing something more efficiently. Maybe you're offering the same value at a lower price. There's all different ways you can go, but ultimately consumers want value. And when you as a brand could provide that value, but communicate in a way that recognizes your job is to provide value, you
Yeah.
as the seller,
Yeah.
you recognize that I'm here to provide you value at a fair price.
Mhm.
That's the vast majority of your marketing. That's the vast majority of your marketing. And a lot of brands fail to do that.
Yeah.
So then I say, okay, we have a product, we have a website. Is the production quality good? Do we work on our CRO and our messaging, the logistics, the infrastructure? Obviously, whether you're offering a service or you're retail or you're an e-commerce brand, all these considerations are different, but at a high level, they're relevant to any type of category.
Mhm.
And then you look at traffic acquisition. I like to start with Google Ads. I think in most cases, Google is a really strong bellwether for the market.
Mhm.
How many people are in the market? How many people are searching for these types of products? How many people are searching for these types of services? If it's really a brand new category, then you have Meta, which is more of a rich visual media type of advertising channel or format. And again, you produce imagery and video that's very clear, very to the point, shows the item, and you begin measuring. And it's very rare that your campaigns are going to do well in the beginning.
Yeah.
You have to, a business, it's not easy. It is not a given that you'll succeed. All of these advertising channels that are pay to play are very saturated, are very competitive, and it's not true that it's an equal playing field. It's just not true. Yes, anyone can start and anyone could spend money on these platforms, but it's not true that it's an equal playing field, because the advertisers and the brands and the companies with larger businesses and more mature sales cycles and more mature revenue cycles, if it's e-commerce, are using that data and that history to spend more money and bid more aggressively in these auctions, which is driving your cost up, but you might not be able to afford those more, let's say, aggressive costs per click, because you haven't figured out how to earn that much revenue on a new customer that your competitor is earning on a customer. You're losing money when your competitor is breaking even or your competitors willing to break even just because they're much more established and they have investors, and you get pushed out of the auction. And that will happen. It can happen. And it's not true that it's a level playing field, but nevertheless, it is an open competitive arena that's still, it's definitely, look, new winners and new losers are emerging every day across Meta and Google, Amazon, TikTok, Pinterest. And it's absolutely possible for a new advertiser, a new business, a new brand that wants to spend more aggressively on these channels to do very well.
What I like about, I think the biggest thing I love in everything you said is the value, value versus benefits, right? Some
Mhm.
people also call it the job to be done.
Mhm.
And we often see on our side, instead of doing just do it, we'll say, uh, achieve faster pace because of our ASO. Achieve, I don't know, make ladies not strained after a run because of so technology in the boat. Achieve this job to be done because of this feature, because of this capability. I wouldn't even say it as feature per se. Everybody uses a phone. Nobody knows it's made of some chipset that is 400 gigahertz and all that. No one cares about that, right?
Mhm.
About what the chip allows you to do. So that's where we come from. And you're right, the era of using benefits, very fluffy stuff is over. Now customers also have a lot of power on their hands. They're able to research things themselves because of the growth of digital media in general.
Mhm.
In terms of the cost, of course, by increasing your conversion rate, you tend to increase your level of competitiveness in the auction. So, if you're looking at, how do I break out when the level of playing field is not low, a high, or is not even available, that's the right word there, is, be able to make sure that your campaign is hitting people as much as possible, even if it's just one impression. I know that that doesn't make sense, but with as little data as possible, make sure that you are as relevant to your target market as possible, and then with that, you can easily increase your relevance, increase your attractiveness, and
Mhm.
increase. Like you said, Isaac, you may not win the awards, you may not be on CNBC, but you're making business grow, you are making profits, and that's really what it's about. And you are paying the bills for your family as well. It's important to always tie those things together too. Again, I can't thank you enough, Isaac, for all that you have shared. How you just sort of broken everything down. If you're listening, if you're watching, I hope you've taken as many notes as you can, or as you should, and been able to, run ads the way it should be run. We're not going too technical today. We are looking at the basics. We are helping you cover as much of the basics as possible. So, Isaac, I would like more people to follow you. I have clamored. I am raising a virtual placard on why you should get more on social media. But people also need to find your company, the great things that your company have done. So please tell us about that for those who don't know already.
Yeah, look, I had a great time talking with you, Dots. This was a really good conversation, very insightful, great questions. Um, yeah, definitely get more active on social media. For now, listeners can go to learning.adventureppc.com, learning.adventureppc.com to check out our academy of courses, downloadable guides, toolkits.
Mm.
And, to see what our agency is up to, they could go to our main website, adventureppc.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Look me up, connect with me there. I'm on YouTube a little bit, and I'm on Twitter at Isaac Rudansky a little bit. I'm not super active there. But yeah, very easy to connect. I'd love to hear from your listeners, and hopefully some of our educational resources will be valuable.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, guys, this is how we do it. More episodes like this, especially part one of this episode, can be found at dotslovesmarketing.com. You can also subscribe to the Marketing Leadership Podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, so you'll never miss a new great episode from a great guest. I'd like to thank Desk Creek, Listen Network, and Content Allies for their support. Till next time, connect the dots.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Dots Loves Marketing. There will be links to any resources mentioned in today's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.